welcome. It's good to know that you're all safe and sound. I hope you've enjoyed the Future Print Summit and it's been of interest. This is the Crown Pub. This is something that we started at the beginning of the current pandemic. It's something that we did to keep in touch with everyone, to make sure we could help anyone if there was anything that we could do to help anyone. It's been quite successful. We've had quite a lot of people coming in on a regular basis. I think it's more to do with the fact that people like a drink during the day rather than the witty and quick content managed to check out. But we've had really good fun doing it. We're running it twice a week. It's normally 3:30 on a Tuesday and a Thursday. Next Tuesday we've got the print buyer for Sainsbury's and Argos to talk to us. We've had a couple of celebrity hosts in the pub as we've gone through, and yeah, it's all about giving good content, staying in touch, and helping everybody. If everybody could follow the Crown Pub on LinkedIn, we've got a little bit of a bet going. We can get more followers than everybody else, so we really would appreciate that. But that's all we ask for. And during the course of this session, if anybody has any questions, if you just put your hand up, we're not going to mute everybody and do anything like that. Just put your hand up, we'll get you, and we'll try and get you all in.
Keep those for another time.
So without further ado, and background noise from Steve Giddens' wife, I'm going to hand over to Milo. Milo's going to kick off for the first question, and then we'll roll into discussion. Chances are we won't get through 2 or 3 of the questions because then it'll just...
There's quite a few people, luckily, and there's quite a few people from the exhibition industry as well, which is fantastic to see you guys. Well, the obvious question, the first question that we sent out to all of you to invite to this particular session was, what is the future of the print events, of the events at all after everything happened? If you could, guys, help us to understand what is going to happen with the biggest shows like Drupa, what is going to happen with the smaller shows, whether one will be, one type of the shows will pick up a little bit or the other will decline in the importance, would be good to know. I don't know who could start. I haven't seen that crowd for quite a while, and I haven't seen half of you here before. So anyone from the exhibition industry or anyone would like to kick off this conversation?
Hey Milo, hello.
Hello, Steve.
Here he goes. Here he goes.
So, as a veteran exhibitor,
yeah,
I'm very pleased to see that some very clever people like Wayne Beckett have come up with some ideas on doing virtual exhibitions. So, Bobston and Xerox have pulled out of Drupa.
That's the reason why we have this session.
Yes. So funny thing is, I think that what might be interesting about this is that to get, for example, Bob's have come up with this brilliant virtual tour, if you like, of their equipment, which means that you can study what they're offering, sitting on your backside without moving anywhere, right? And because of the brand, obviously, which is very well respected, you could use this as a conduit, if you like, to work out what equipment you need. The tactile part of this business, which is exhibition, shaking people's hands, having a beer and all the rest of it, does not need to be lost, because once you've worked out actually the route you need to go down to look at the machinery, you then still need to go and look at it anyway, and shake someone's hand and have a beer and all the rest of it. But it's kind of, to me, it's an interim step from sitting in your office trying to decide what to do and going to an exhibition, which is extremely expensive. And if you think about Drupa, you can spend a whole damn week there and still not find what you want, and spend a fortune. So to me, this is.
But the question is, I was sorry.
Go on.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking that exhibitions have not, to me, they're not lost, but I think they're diminished, and therefore they should be smaller.
Okay, so you're in a camp who believes that the smaller shows and more targeted shows are on the rise.
Yes.
Things like Label Expo, for example, ICE in converting industry, those really directed to the certain group of people rather than the broad things like K in Düsseldorf or Drupa in Düsseldorf or I don't know, China Plus in Shanghai.
Well, Milo, Kelvin will tell you that we did an open house in October where we had 17 machines manufacturing stuff. And what we did, we started with a product, so an end product, where we worked out how you could get to that end product from a printed sheet to the end product. And in exhibitions, that's extremely difficult to do because what you end up doing is going on a guy's stand who does the printing, then another guy's stand who makes the box, another guy's stand who makes the book cover, then another guy's stand who makes the book. But you can't coordinate it very easily in one kind of space because different manufacturers are spread out all over the place. What we tried to do in October, I think we was very, very successful doing that. We brought in the manufacturers and we brought together a complete system, including you guys from Vpress, with starting the software for personalization. And we ended up giving the customer a complete finished product in a very small space, which actually was very, efficient in terms of showing people what is possible with digital print. You can't do that at an exhibition without killing yourself walking kilometres.
You can't do it, flips to that, Steve, as well. You can't do it at a virtual exhibition at all.
No.
So, sorry, Craig Smith. You're on mute, mate. Must be on a Mac.
I know. Yeah, I am on a Mac, actually. No, all I was going to say was, yeah, I think they will be smaller. But there's certain things, I don't know if you remember what we did at the print show, where we actually did the full integrated workflow, where you take it right from taking a photo of someone and sticking the name in on your phone and actually submitting that into a workflow, automatically ganging it on a sheet, made a full sheet, sheets out, bomb, straight onto a bowl. And that sort of automated process where no one sees anything, but no one actually touches anything. But you see that full automated process end to end, actually in front of you within 1 minute flat. That sort of thing, and actually seeing a tactile sort of like printed sheet coming off. It's
But do you have to see that? Do you have to see that live, or can you see a video? Would it be enough to see a video how it works?
Yeah, I think you see it live. I think you need to see it live, to be honest.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
See that kind of thing.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jez, I left you out of that.
it was me anyway. But I think the shows really give you that ability to show off that thing, and it's got to be live, and you've got to be in front of it. I think to be able to appreciate what's going on with files jumping from one device to another and one piece of software to another. I think it really, really is important, in my opinion.
Well, that's what we did at our open house. Precisely that.
So what we're saying, are we talking the big shows? Are they going to stay around? You know, it's meant to be Drupa this month, and a lot of us on here, we're looking forward to getting together and having a beer together in the Altstadt and drinking all night and all the things that go with Drupa. But you know, that's not going to happen. Will it happen ever? Anybody any comments on that? Are we missing it?
Yeah, Kel, I think it's down to the OEMs themselves, to be honest with you. I mean, obviously you all know I worked on IPEX back in the day, and the industry could comfortably sit with 2 international shows every 2 years. But the amount of sales in equipment now has just changed that. So one now suited the industry, but the industry is still shrinking. I mean, I remember the time where Heidelberg had the biggest hall, and they had, I think at one point, they had like 1,000 staff manning it, and it was 1 in, 1 out on the hall. I mean, and they sold billions and billions of pounds worth of kit off their stand, but that's changed now. That doesn't happen anymore. So it's justifying the multi-million pound spend for these large OEMs to do that type of thing. I think that's what's changing.
Yeah. Pat, you wanted to say something there? Sorry.
Thank you, Kelvin. So here's what I'm going to say. I remember after 9/11, we all thought that trade shows were going to die and never come back. Many people lost a lot of money on exhibitions in the year or two following 9/11. Especially a lot of the smaller shows just flat disappeared. Some tried to combine with other shows. Everybody had to think about reinventing themselves. Some stuff came back. Does that mean like that we'll still have a Drupa every 4 years, or that we'll still have a China print on its cadence? I'm not really sure about that, but I do know that there's still value in getting the industry together in person and not just this way, which has been just a load of fun. And I want to thank you guys for hosting Crown Pub, because I learned from every one of these events. But I'm not yet willing to assume the death of the trade event. I think they may be smaller, they may be more consolidated, but I don't yet believe that we're willing to call them dead. And to believe that people will only want to go to OEM hosted events in OEM hosted locations where every piece of the conversation is completely controlled. The value of the person-to-person trade event is not just kicking the tires on a piece of kit. It's looking at the stuff you wouldn't get a chance to see otherwise, and eavesdropping on other people's conversations to see what their decision processes are. And I've watched those things change someone's decision to buy or not buy.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Color me optimistic.
Sorry, Mike. Mike was just going to come in at the same time. Mike, you were just, I think you just about to take off in an airplane, I think.
No, I am in a vehicle. I am parked. I'm safe. But I think if you look at Drupa, I think Drupa will never be Drupa again. And if I remember last Drupa, 18 holes, I probably saw 3. And I was exhausted. And that's in 14 days. So I don't think these huge, massive shows are going to come back. They're not worth it, because people want to see a special 1 or 2 different things, and that's where they're going for. And if there's 5 or 6 or 7 vendors showing that specific thing, and Pat, we talked about that earlier, they will go to that show. I also believe what Pat says, a controlled vendor show only, I want to hear what other people say also. And I agree with that.
Yeah. Anyone else? Anyone else?
Yeah,
Fraser wanted to mention something. Sorry.
Sorry, just because I've spoken a lot and I don't want to take. It's excellent hearing you guys talk. So, but let me just give you my view as an exhibition organizer. Remember, I was at FESPA for several years. I'm seeing this and watching it, observing it, and I'm hearing also that there will be more cancellations in Drupa next week. So I think basically Drupa will not take place. I think FESPA will postpone their October event. And if I was in their shoes, I'm not saying I am, I would run something next year, probably at the end of the year. But those 2 big mega European events, forget it. I think Printing United are being very ballsy by putting stuff out this week that is saying they will run in October. And they may just get away with it. They may just get away with it because they've just got the balls to do it.
Have you seen a registration link?
Sorry?
Have you seen a registration link? I'm just wondering.
No. Deborah, all I'm saying is they put 2 things out this week, which is unusual, talking about it and saying it's happening. So possibly because if we're running the virtual, they're making a big noise about it. It may not happen. I don't know. I'm just saying to you, they may get away with it. I just wanted to finish off. I think we should go local, and I think we should do more. You'll see more vendor events. I just think that's got to be the route, hasn't it? More vendor events, and maybe virtual events, but maybe content virtual, not exhibit. Sorry, Wayne. I just don't think. I don't think virtual exhibitions got any chance. But anyway,
yeah, that's fine.
Sorry. Stirred the pot.
Sorry, if we just have
stirred the pot.
Yeah, if we just have one at a time. Annie Houghton, sorry, it was just itching to get in there. Then Warren.
Can I put in a point about from a PR perspective? What I see is that companies themselves have got to change their marketing strategies. So when you've got a whole lot of companies vying to sell their products, what is their behaviors? Are they going to go to an event from now on, or are they able now with all this online opportunity to do different things? I think what we're going to see is a whole change in marketing strategies from clever companies, where they're going to, they will drive the future of the events. Their behavior, it's whether they uptake, you know, what they want, what do they want out of, you know, out of an event now, because of the other options that they might have. And so I think we have to wait and see. And I think Fraser has a real point in his observation of the future. Yeah.
Dr. Simon's just made a good point there about car showrooms, about, you know, who goes to a car showroom anymore. And every time I drive past a car showroom before COVID-19, they're always empty. I always wonder what they're there for. Can't see the point, to be honest. But, you know, different way of buying altogether.
Exactly.
Yeah, sorry.
So I think the big shows are going to dwindle to be smaller, but I think smaller shows will prosper. I think once we get over this COVID thing, be it 6 months or 12 months, we're human beings. We want to interact. We want to mingle with people. And no one's talking about that. But the psychology of who we are is we're going right back to it, because I see people now, as it's lifting a little, they're watching, but everybody's hungry for the interaction. I think we'll see more manufacturers trying to bring more people to the showrooms like they started doing 10 years ago. I think if you're a real buyer, you're going to learn more on those tours when they take you. I think the online, like we're doing now, will have some benefits to some, but the creature in us, we want to travel, we want to move around. I just don't know when. Printing United, I think that was a mistake, telling us that they're coming out with the show. In talking to all my friends in all business who travel the world, just about every single one of them has said to me, we do 200,000-300,000 miles a year flying. We're good to do nothing for the next 12 months. They've put it in their head, just because of what it is, a timeline to wean out of, right? Yeah. And the last one is Brand Printing, which is Label Expo in the US. They announced that they're canceling September, postponing till March.
John Charnock has just mentioned a good point on the chat about Hunkler. I went to Hunkler for the first time last year, and I was amazed. In 20 odd years in print, I'd never been before. It's the best show I've ever been to.
You're dead.
Absolutely smashed it. Nailed it.
Well, the nice thing there for Hunkler is that it's one vendor that integrated a multitude of hardware guys together to show solutions. And at the end of the day, that's what we want to see, solutions. And how? We'll see it. I don't think we'll see it in a big show, but I agree, regional shows, solutions shows, that's where we go.
And Steve, that's what you did. John, did you want to say something about that?
No, I was saying, you know, they were specialists, that was all.
It was an excellent show. Can I just go to Paul Stead? Paul, did you have a comment to make, or were you just in your toupee? I wasn't sure. No, nothing coming back from Paul Stead, so he's not.
Kelvin, yes. Can I just say, we have to not lose track of the point of an exhibition. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is it not to sell equipment primarily? And how many exhibitions now achieve that objective, selling equipment? This is the problem. And also, based on the amount you spend, how cost effective is it? Whereas my show, for example, and other people doing regional shows and OEM shows and what have you, the cost to me was food and electricity, right? And so I sold machines.
I'm on conference. I'm on conference.
So, Steve, we get you. Steve, we get you. I would say to you, though, isn't the point of a show to sell a solution?
Yes.
Whatever that solution may be. And the kit is one of the solutions. It's a key part within the print industry. Anyone else on that subject? Wayne, sorry, you were trying to get in there?
Yeah, no, I was just going to go back with Fraser. I mean, virtual shows are not there to replace live events. That's not what we've got in mind. It's to complement it. Of course, I love Drupa. I've done 5 Drupas. I've done the Hunkler shows. It's fantastic to go and meet people and walk around and shake hands. That hopefully will never, ever change. But the thing is with the big OEMs, they can't justify doing the big international shows. The regional shows, I agree. The solutions shows, I agree. that's the way forward. That's where PSPs want to spend their time. And as we've all said, you walk around Drupa for days and you don't see half of it. But the point is that virtual showrooms will work alongside the live events rather than replace them. That's our view anyway.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I said earlier.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I said Wayne. That's what I said earlier. You're the conduit to bring people to the piece of equipment they want to buy. Then they could go and look at it.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, we for the smaller companies to have a shell scheme with some 3D visualizations of equipment is great, but it's for data collection. But of course, if you're going to actually buy it, then you want to test drive it. You want to go and see it. No one's going to buy a £1 million press by looking at a pretty picture on a website. But,
let's be honest though, Wayne, no one goes to a trade show and just buys a £1 million press.
Well,
those kind of deals are done in advance.
I've always said that, Kel. If a sales rep has a customer on his patch walk in that he doesn't know and buy a 10 colour B1 Speedmaster, the first thing you do is fire him.
Yeah. I mean, Dave McGuinness goes to Drupa and sells 10 Next presses on the first day. I don't believe that. Don't believe that in any way. It's a facade. Yeah, Simon, you mentioned a good point there. Sorry, did you want to say something? Because I was just trying to get around.
I just think we're looking at it in a world of Amazon. We're trying to be Debenhams. We're sitting here trying to have a yesteryear kind of approach to something that people haven't got time to spend. We may have all enjoyed our time at Drupa. Anybody in the 30s probably hasn't been, and they're going to be taking over. I've got a 32-year-old MD, and a week wandering around getting pissed, it doesn't really kind of make that float their boat. And I think if now we're used to online, we're used to instant. Yes, of course, we'll do the pre-qualifications, using our secondary research on the net and peer groups and LinkedIn to ask other users and what have you. All of those kind of things will happen without going anywhere near an exhibition. And I think then you'll want to have a case study of somebody using that bit of equipment or going to the manufacturing site, Barcelona, or whatever. I just genuinely can't see anybody investing that amount of time and effort these days going into an exhibition like they used to.
Well, I probably agree with you, Simon, although I try not to. I do agree with you. Lucy, sorry, were you waving or were you trying to get a point in?
Sure, just wave.
You have a second bottle already.
Actually requested to wave at Jeremy's son because he was in the picture, so I was waving at him. Sorry.
All right, so you've got no intelligent input.
I think Dave Stone wants to say something. No?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, equipment, it's not really my thing, if I'm honest. I'm obviously sales and marketing director. It's not something that I tend to, usually get involved in. But my point is, and I've just put it on chat, is how many times do people go to a show and see something they didn't know existed, right? So the point that Simon, I think, picking up on to extend what Simon said, was people will do their research in advance, presumably. Probably very rare you go to a show and see something that you didn't know existed. So from my perspective, would it not be more beneficial to have the smaller groups, like, I don't know, if somebody's launching the jet press or whatever, Fuji did a great couple of days where we went down there and saw a specific piece of kit because that's what we wanted to see. Is there not more of a need to do more kind of, like you say, more local, more concentrated demos as opposed to the big shows where you spend a lot of time walking around and obviously probably don't achieve much?
Correct.
Yeah,
that's from I'm a non-production person. I'm just giving my, outsider's view on it, I guess.
Could I jump in and just play devil's advocate here? When IPEX collapsed, we tried to do loads of our own local shows, put it together with people like yourself and whatever, and get people to come along. And what you find, once you take Christmas out the equation and the summer holidays and all that, you're left with a few key months that you can do some shows. And then you find Heidelberg are doing a show, and then you find HP are doing a show, and suddenly we're all fighting each other to get customers out of their places of work to come and see you. So suddenly it becomes, we're all fighting to get customers whose time is very valuable. So I like those shows, I like the local shows, but it's a very congested diary. And also the online stuff, which has been great this week, I noticed that everybody's starting to put in their own virtual kind of seminars. So again, we're all starting to compete against each other to get customers' time. So I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. I'd love to know as a marketing person what the answer is. The big shows work for us, but the cost has just become astronomical.
That's a good point. Sorry, Dave.
I think also anything that involves people for the next year is logistical. So the moment you start introducing queuing at Drupa and, you know, trying to get people one by one into queue, it's going to kill it.
Yeah.
It's bad enough trying to get a taxi.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, the not having things like Drupa is a big loss, because it's a networking side. You know, meeting people, engaging with people, and having done those shows with you, Dave. You know, they are small and intimate, and they're easy to get to. Paul said you were gonna come in with a point there, or were you waving again?
The we being you, Kelvin Bell, Tim Cox, and myself. We came up with an idea about 2 years ago, and we've set up a group called Print with Pride. Real short summary. We've been doing what manufacturers with bag loads of money should do, and we've been taking the show regionally around the country in small groups. Now, the last one we did, we advertised as how to produce personalised packaging. It was really simple. We made Easter egg boxes and showed people how to do it. Now, the downside is we got closed down by COVID. The upside for people like Lucy is she got her Easter eggs through the post. Steve Giddens, I ate his, but it was delicious. but the point is, we were taking the responsibility to show an application that was in a lot of people's heads by taking the work to them. Now, if ASL and Vpress and Ashgate and Antalis can afford to do it on our humble budgets, why can't the manufacturers? I'll tell you why. They're too bloody tight. They want your order, but they don't want to give you anything back.
Wise words indeed, Paul Stead. And they're from Paul Stead, not from Vpress.
I thought that was a bit harsh. I think that's a bit harsh myself.
Interesting point there, Jeremy Spencer. The show in Harrogate died very quickly. Actually, that was an amazing show, North Print. I don't know if anyone else is old enough, apart from me and Tim, to remember North Print. My God, that was a good show. That was a really good show.
I was an informer at the time, and I worked on it.
Yeah,
and it was a great show, because everybody loved coming to Harrogate. Everybody loved spending a couple of days in the hotels, having nice meals. But on the show floor, there wasn't a great deal of business done. There was loads of people shaking hands. It was like a club. And
good networker though, Wayne.
Yeah, great networking. Oh, exactly. Yeah, I mean, the pubs were packed every evening. But yeah, I mean, the visitor attendance went massively downhill, but people were still going because it was Harrogate and they loved Harrogate.
Yeah, it's Tim Cox who's on here, our MD, will testify. It's the only show I've ever been to and the only time in my life I've been unable to work out my own socks through alcohol abuse. That's what. That's the only time.
Really?
Yeah. Bettine, what about you? I mean, Bettine, you go to a lot of these shows.
That was just your mental capability at the time, Kelv, actually.
Yeah, I was moving on quickly there as well. Bettine, you organise a lot of events, and you go to a lot of events, and you always go there with a big presence. What do you think, being a key figure in our industry?
I mean, I agree with a lot of things that have been said. Exhibitions aren't cheap. And it's not just the floor space, it's everything else, and it's getting people off out of your office, etc. as well. But I think the key to that, and it has been touched on today, it's the interaction. It's, yes, I'm going to miss Drupa in 2 weeks' time, because I would have seen friends not only obviously from the UK but all over the country, all over the world, and it's that possible serendipity of meeting someone, having an odd conversation, either with a beer or without, that you just wouldn't get. And sadly, though it's great, I think you've got 63 people here today, which is great. But if we were in a real pub, there'd be a group over here and a group there, and then suddenly you go, oh, look, there's Dave, I'll go and talk to him, which we can't do in this. So I think what going forward then it somehow is to have events that actually just bring the industry together. You know, if there is an opportunity to show off your wares as well, then fair enough. But I do think the smaller regional shows will possibly thrive. Maybe not so much in this country, but I would imagine in the States, because people don't want to travel as well is the other thing. You know, we're hearing about Japanese corporate companies are saying no travel until 2021. So, you know, if you haven't got your customers coming, then, you know, that's going to be a problem. But
you say that Bettina, even with the American shows, I mean, print in Chicago, I went there probably 4 years ago, and it was about a quarter of the size that it was when I went 3 or 4 years before that. I mean, even the US shows, which technically are regional, because I mean, it's all the US companies and the US distributors that do it. And attendances were down, stands were down. I mean, it was one hall, and it was only 3/4 of that one hall. I mean, it's exhibitions globally. I think the only show really at the moment that's really flying high, especially shows like Label X. Label Expo.
Yeah.
I mean, that's packed year on year, isn't it?
But then also it is an area of the industry that's doing well at the moment with label.
Well, exactly.
You know, forgetting about COVID, but, you know, packaging and labels. But
John Smythe this morning talked about how the labels, there was only about 6 sectors, including corrugated, but labels was high up on the list of surviving sectors. So yes, and
they were doing less badly than other ones, Danny.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, John Charnock, you were going to.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, Label X is doing well because of the market. Vespa, when the large format was growing, fantastic, you know, and then it got a bit saturated and has come down. I think what happens is that's why they need to be specialists, is because people move to where the growth is. And so they will go to a show when they want to learn about labels, or they want to learn about packaging, or they want to migrate some of their stuff from one place to another, or learn something else. But the reason, and that's why Hunkler does so well, for exactly the same reasons. Lots of people were getting into inkjet, and it became the inkjet show. It was the one to go to if you wanted to learn how to finish web-fed inkjet. And so I think we need to have a mixture of all of this tech, whether it's content, whether it's virtual, and I think specialist shows or shows with areas of specialism that people who are interested in that specialism can go to.
Yeah.
You're dead right.
But John, don't you think it's the relaying of information between, or education between suppliers that's moving in a different direction now, with so many different means of communicating?
Yeah, I agree. It's been, and I've said this back in the IPEX days, it's been driven by the suppliers, not by the audience. You have to be driven by the audience, not by... We had everybody, I think I was the first punter who goes to a show to go on the IPEX committee. We have to follow the audience, not the suppliers. The suppliers want to take everyone offline onto their own little community because they don't want to cross-fertilize. But suppliers don't buy stuff. People buy stuff, and they want to learn what to do new and mix and match and find new technologies and stuff like that. We have to follow the audience. We have to follow where the people are going. And whether that's online or in a show, we have to provide, it's not about the manufacturers, it's about delivering solutions to the punter.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on, Simon.
If you look at the leaders in all the fields that do thought leadership pieces, we don't. We try and flog bits of fucking kit. And what we've got to do is move away from looking at what it is our presses can do to understanding why people are creating a piece of print in the field, why they should create a piece, and reverse your way back. And, you know, if you look at what Google do and all of this, there's a huge amount of online resources to become a person that uses their services. And we don't do that. We're far too siloed. And an exhibition used to be the way that you could almost, with like Lego bricks, create your own workflow and your own solution by wandering around halls before you got pissed. And people haven't got the time for that now. And so we as an industry, and I think there is a great opportunity for people like HP to do elements of it, but I don't see anybody who's taken that high end in this new digital era that we're in. Why would you use print? Nobody's been trained in it. There is nowhere, certainly in the UK, that you can get any training in printing. So we need to make it accessible and understand when the tactility of a message, which is using all of the data, the GDPR compliance, and all of the the rich data we've got now. Why would I need to bring a piece of print into that? And we do it.
But that's a huge point. That's a really big point. And I think that one of the things that's been missing from shows that I've gone to over the years recently is the educational aspect of it. That should be the lead. It used to be, and I don't mean to take the trip down memory lane again, but it used to be there were white papers that were presented that talked about things. There is some research being done by manufacturers where they look at the market and say, we need to build a press that does this, because there's going to be this need coming up, and we found that out. That's the information that needs to be seen because that's the lead for the people who are the manufacturers or the marketing people to understand what it is that's going to be going on. Where is that education taking place? That's what the shows should evolve to at some point, or go back to at some level, to be able to educate the industry about what's going on. The integration of technology, the integration of digital media. Should printers really expand their think set into becoming marketers so that they understand what it is that people need? This is the key issue that's confronting the smaller print shops, is they don't know what to do. I'm going to mention one name, Graphenia with their Nettle brand. Is able to go out and say, listen, here's a new branch of business, because when you talk to them about a website, which everybody needs, then you can also talk to them about the other, companion marketing needs that people have. It broadens the conversation, it broadens the product portfolio, and gives you a really good reason to go talk to the person, because you are providing a solution at some level that they would need. That's a discussion that the print industry has had a lot of difficulty being able to embrace and articulate to the market.
Can I just say, the print industry does not ask the customer what he wants. They make something and they tell him, this is what we've made, would you like to buy it, kind of attitude. And the customer focus, the audience you talked about earlier, that is the most important thing. The audience is the customer. They're the people who give us the money, nobody else. Money doesn't come from anywhere else. And a lot of manufacturers, big ones especially, have not asked the customer what they want.
And Steve, that's not the case in all respects.
No, it's not. But there's a lot of it.
I work with Zycon, and they are huge in giving advice online and in every way to try and advise their customers. A lot more companies are coming to be aware that if they don't understand their customers' behaviors, then they're not going to be able to market their goods.
Absolutely.
And why isn't that in the trade shows? Why isn't that in the trade shows? Why isn't that what the trade show's saying? Exactly the point that you just made. Why isn't the trade show coming out and saying, this is what the need is? It's not just printers that should come to the trade show. It's the customers that should come to the trade show. Every person who appears to a trade show should bring their 10 best customers and say, here's the things that we're looking at in the industry. What attracts you? What are you going to be using to market things?
It's not the print buyers, it's the print users. And the industry never thinks about, civilians. We all get so far up ourselves looking at the image quality, looking at various other things. Real people don't care. It's how they get information, how they transact, how they're educated, how they're entertained.
But the consumers are driving this world now. It's all about consumer demand, higher and higher expectation.
I just want to bring Marcus in just before I do. I mean, is that not a dangerous, Sean? Is that not a dangerous thing to do if you're bringing the end user to a print show and they realise that they can buy that kit for sub 50k and they can do it themselves? Or is that not a route?
Who owns the customer, Kelvin? Come on. Who owns the customer?
Well, you don't know. We've got customers who are buying their own presses now and skipping out the printer.
But you've said it. You've said it in a dozen of these shows, or the half dozen that we've done. Is that the person who provides value in the relationship owns the customer, because the customer goes to them and say, "Listen, you know what's going on in the industry. You understand my business. You can see things that are going on." That knowledge base at that discussion is all too rare. It does occur. It's not vacant.
I absolutely agree. Marcus, sorry, you were waiting patiently. Sorry.
Yeah, no, basically, I was just, I think one of the problems I've always thought with trade shows, and perhaps the larger ones even more so, is that they're often run by teams of people just who are not part of the industry, culturally different to the industry, don't understand fully the needs of the market. And I think that they're the kind of shows that tend to get closed down quicker, because frankly, there's no relationship there and the value isn't understood. I think the smaller shows, the shows that are closer to their markets, the more niche events, the smaller organisers, the smaller media owners are stronger, in a stronger position. Because me personally, although I don't have an event right now, we just ran a virtual one. I know I'm part of the event industry, but I'm actually more inclined to think I'm part of the print industry. That's my community. That's what I care about. And if I have a purpose, and my purpose is to help that market, then I'll do whatever I can to do that. And I think that's crucial. And I think that we may see a change with technology as well, because these virtual, the owners of the virtual technologies are not event people. They're digital people, and they're breaking all the rules and they're redefining the rules. And yeah, and I think IPEX died in part because of the structural change in the market, but also because the organizer wasn't really, and I don't think there was a huge amount of relationships in the industry there. And I think it's just easy for people to cross off the list. Having said that, if we see that with Drupal, I don't think Drupal will go away. I think Drupal will just probably have a year off.
Yeah, we'll see. Before I come back, Wayne, before I come back to you, Jez, you mentioned a good point there, and you've been waiting patiently in the background, about a couple of shows that you went to. Jez, you've got your
me? Yeah, well, no, I was going to say a couple of things, and I agree that manufacturers should do more. It's something that I love doing, talking about software and showing it and building up that tense demonstration throughout the software demos that I do. And I don't think you'd get that virtually, because you're not in front of the person doing it. But couple of the things, and Dave McGuinness will remember this, one of the couple of things that we did at Kodak was we did a football stadium tour, which was really successful. So not only did you have the pulling power of the football stadium and the celeb that we had talking that was linked to that football stadium, but we also got to show off our softwares as well. And it was very, very successful. And then the second, sorry about that.
Because it's about pleasing the people, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, but Jez,
sure. Yeah, but guys, I mean, what I'm worried about is we need to look at where we start. 90% of all the marketeers want one thing on a trade show, and I was a marketeer doing that. We want leads, numbers of leads. I mean, there's targets for salespeople to bring in leads. It doesn't matter what kind of lead, as long as bring leads, because 90% of all the vendors are making one big mistake. They want new customers. They don't want to talk to their old customers. They want to talk to new customers because they want new business. And as long as that's happening, nobody's going to educate nobody. They want to talk to you first, and then they'll drag you away. I think that's where the essential problem is in this industry. We don't want to talk to our secrets. We don't want to tell our competitor how we do things, because if we do, we lose the business.
Yeah, wise words, Mike. Sorry, Wayne's been waiting patiently there. Sorry, Wayne. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, does anybody remember the cross-media show that we ran in Islington?
Yeah.
At the design centre. Yeah. So we ran that show deliberately to get graphic designers, buyers, print buyers along to learn about print and how print can be built into marketing campaigns. So we ran it as a Confex. If people remember, every conference was packed for the whole day. After 2 years, we couldn't get anybody to exhibit because the people coming through the doors weren't equipment buyers, and people were saying that the people that are coming in weren't the right people. They want to talk to PSP. You know, they don't want to stand there for an hour talking to a graphics designer about producing folded cartons. And that's why that show stopped, because we tried to do something different, but the exhibitors didn't want end users coming to the event.
Jean, do you want to mention something?
Hi, can I say something? Sorry,
Yes.
I've got a limited time because my dog's snoring on the floor. So every time I'm about to say something, he starts snoring loud and I've got to put myself on mute. So, you know, we've been having these discussions for weeks now about printers. They're not great marketeers, let's face it. Love print, been in it my whole life, but, you know, do printers market themselves greatly? But I also think the whole COVID thing and going online and doing things differently has also opened up a lot of people's eyes about reinventing themselves and having to look at their business and what do I need to do differently. So being involved in consulting and I look at every press as a marketing tool, and it's what you're going to do with that tool that's your key differentiator. And I think that, you know, needs to come into it again, because the speeds and the feeds and the box itself is not what's selling it. It's like push-pull marketing. We've got to get to the end user to drive them into, you know, to see the benefits of the actual press. So I think there's a lot that vendors can still do and need to do. And Wayne, you know, your point about the shows that you were talking about, I think, you know, we're lacking that still, because that's what's going to drive the volume to all these new presses. But I do think the way things have gone with COVID has changed the way people are seeing things. And I think if there's a time that the industry's right, I think it's now to bring all of that back. I think, you know, we need to be educating the end users on print and the advantages of what you can do with it, not the speeds and the feeds of the press.
Very well said, Jean. I was really hoping we get to hear your dog snore while you were speaking there, but it's not going to happen. There's an interesting point. So there's some of the new members to the pub in the cheap seats at the back with no webcam. If they'd like to make a comment or ask a question, then you can, of course, use chat. And we're looking at the chat as it's going on. Pedro has made a very good point that shows all the best opportunity to collect information on innovation, as well as networking and face-to-face. Pedro, can you hear us? Like I said, some people are in the cheap seats and don't have a microphone or camera. So,
Kelvin, can I just say something?
Hang on, Steve. Can you just bear me 1 second?
Yeah.
Just give Pedro a chance to unmute himself if he's going to join us. It doesn't look as though he is. So go on, Steve.
Well, I just wanted to say, in the last 2 months, I've been working every day, okay? And some very interesting things have happened with me.
I'll pull it back. Yeah.
Shazia, you're on. We can hear you, Shazia. Don't worry. Go on, Steve.
Sorry, I was going to say.
Everyone, I'm working on a call, isn't it?
Okay, go on.
Go on.
Okay. COVID has given us opportunities that we hadn't even thought about, probably. And I've got customers ringing me up talking about removing plastic from their production. So guess what? Paper and board is the alternative. I've got shippers, my forwarder, telling me what has happened to the cost of shipping from the Far East. It's rocketed. And so, what's the word? Manufacturing in the UK has got a big opportunity now to stop bringing printed material in from China, for example. We have got a big opportunity here because of the cost of transport, the lead times, and all the rest of it. So we really should embrace that. And I can't believe the speed that people are coming at me saying we got to get rid of plastic, we got to bring back manufacturing from China. And I don't know if anybody else has seen this, but it's quite amazing in 2 months what's happened.
Okay, cheers, Steve. Anyone else before we go back over to Milo, who's been waiting to ask another question?
Yes.
Anyone else? Sorry, go on.
This is Pedro. Hello.
Pedro. Hello. Yes, Pedro. You've come back.
Yes. Yeah. Hello. Yeah. I had to connect my my micro.
Mate, it's your first time in the pub. We'll give you some grace. Don't worry.
Yeah, that's my opinion. I think that the shows are really very, very important as the point of view of a buyer.
Yeah.
Opportunity to see multiple equipment and making decisions and seeing all that is available. And from the point of view of the manufacturer, is also an opportunity to meet a lot of people in one single place, and then manage country by country or distributor by distributor the sales. So I think we are all living now a very unique situation, but we will never drop the face-to-face meeting and to see the people and to be in touch for the future.
Pedro, it's a really good point, because unlike Paul Stead and Wayne Beckett, I'm a people person, so I enjoy being with people rather than dealing with them remote. Pedro, just one question before we go. Where are you from? Where you dialing in from today?
Well, I'm based in Portugal.
Okay.
But I'm the director of DGI, the International Association of Printers Global.
Oh, excellent.
So,
well, we love Portugal because they welcome the British in. Not so much Greece because he said no. But moving on, anyone else?
Jason.
Hi guys. Yeah, I'm off mute this time. No, what I think from a vendor's perspective is that we are keen to show solutions. I think that's really important for a lot of the events. There is an audience out there, and I think it's how do you get to the wider audience, and whether it's going to be virtual, whether it's going to be people at the event. I think it's now down to how you're going to communicate what that event's about, those solutions, getting a message out there. And as we've talked about print, what are the tools out there that are going to help print companies? I think it's the same message that goes out to the events and who works on those events. So what tools or what solutions are they going to use to get to a wider audience? Or even working with the vendors, how are they going to deliver their message around solutions to the market? So it's another way of saying, well, how do you turn it around? How do you spin it around? And how do you press the reset button and start again? I think there's a great opportunity. It'd be a shame if it was missed.
Yes, that was my next question. What is the alternative for the events, really? Because, you know, everyone comes in and can pull, as Simon, I think, mentioned, that this is much like Lego exercise. You can pull out things from the exhibition and put entire workflow together after, you know, a couple of days at the show. I was wondering whether this is going to be the relationship between collaborative suppliers and working together to provide end-to-end solution would be an option now. I don't know.
Can we just go to answer that? Can we just go to my D-Scoop Budapest buddy, Tracy Deneen?
Of course.
Yeah. Can I really ask the question? Do we need to have events? Because I think there's an awful lot of focus on trying to come up with a solution that works, and yet there's a real issue with attendees for shows in general, exhibitions, vendor events. At the beginning were really successful, but now because everybody does them and everybody's trying to control the customer, is there really a value? Because there seems to be a lack of focus on the customer. Is it maybe better to just have one-to-one conversations with an audience rather than trying to always have a group event? Because it seems like we're trying to force things and also really look to a different audience to maybe come up with answers. I mean, Simon's point about, you know, youngsters wouldn't really ever think about going to an exhibition. There's a lack of youth to come up with what might be the next way to do something.
Yeah, sorry, John Charnock.
No, just out of interest, I found some technology, and purely because my son works for a company called AZO Networks, and what they are doing in the scientific space is really, really clever.
Is this a plug?
A hub for content around scientific technology, and basically people pay them to write content, and then when you Google search, their stuff comes right up there because it's free content. It's obviously paid for content, but it's free. And what I like the model of is, and not just because I found some technology from it, but I just like that model of content that people will find online that drives them to somewhere else. And it's become in, you know, sensors and IR and microscopes is the place to go to find white papers and information and things that are up there, written by really good scientists and journalists, obviously with an angle, obviously with a little bit of a twist. But I think there could be something to create something like that in the print sector, where it is, I'm looking at web offset, or I'm looking at inkjet, or I'm looking at sensors. I found some time of flight cameras that are brilliant for retail. And I found it through this network. And it's just an interesting model of content. But if you could link that then to the vendors and the follow-on event, I think it could be quite smart.
Interesting.
I mean, can I say something there, Kelvin? One of my concerns, big concerns on this one, would be that most of the innovation comes from small companies, not the big guys. But the big guys have the money to control these channels. If you look at a trade show, any trade show, the outer ring, where the small booth of 2 by 2 meter booth are sometimes the most interesting booths on a trade show, and you will lose total that effect in a hub that is controlled by the bigger vendors. I would be really concerned with our industry.
Yeah, Fraser, you've just mentioned a good point there about Drupa.
Yeah, sorry, I know this sounds a bit kind of old hat, but these big machinery shows, and I'm not just talking about Drupa, I'm talking about all, we're exhibition organisers, so I'm thinking about all the big blockbuster shows that exist. They exist because of momentum, they exist because every year people rebook their hotels, it's a great place to get together, all the kind of, reasons we all go to these big events. But the reality is, that isn't the future, is it? It's not us, this group of people sitting here, that is the future of the print event marketplace. We're the kind of, what used to be the industry. So exactly as the comments that have been made, it's about doing something slightly different. I'm not saying that the virtual thing is right. I'm just saying that the experience needs to be different for the future.
So what you're saying, Fraser, is white middle-aged men don't matter.
Yeah. Hashtag.
Hashtag.
Speak for yourself, Kevin.
Hashtag. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that is the industry as of today, but won't be in the future. So we absolutely have to.
No, I get you. And during the course of this,
in the future.
And during the course of these sessions that we've had, we ventured onto one that I didn't know anything about, Generation Z. And Lucy, we had an awesome session about Generation Z and discussing about the people who are going to be buying print in the future. On the chat, Dayalar, you've just mentioned a good point. I'll put your question back to you if you could come off mute. What do you think? What do you think Drupa 2021 will be like? Can you hear me? Dayalar? No. Dayalar's there, but he's not listening, so that's no problem. Okay, it's just he mentioned a question in the chat I was just responding to. Yeah, that's a good point. Anybody else want to comment on that?
Well, I think Drupa will be a hell of a lot smaller next year. I mean, you've got 2, 3, I think. I think Ceto have announced that they're pulling out, and then obviously you've got Bob's, the Xerox have gone. So when somebody like Xerox pulls out, then you get a whole rush of other stands that go, which are, I used to call them the pilot fish that survive off of the Xerox stand. So they would all be in the Xerox hall because Xerox are there. There'll be partners, and there'll be companies that work with Xerox customers. They'll have no need to be there now. So the whole of that hall will probably go. The same with Bob's, and I think there will be other major OEMs that will pull out as well because Xerox are not there. So, and again, so that'll have a knock-on effect throughout all the halls. And I think there's going to be some big announcements over the next month.
I think we all know there's going to be some big announcements about Drupa. So yeah, I think I know that. John Charnock?
Yeah, just coming back on Fraser's point, I completely agree with him. Long term, we've got to look at a different market than the grey middle-aged man like myself. However, most of them own the printing companies, and most organisations work to the next quarter or the next financial year. And we have to sort the next financial year out first before we worry about what's going to happen in 10 years' time. I think we've got to do both, but I do think that we've got to answer the questions for the now. And that's
You're right. You're right, John. You're right. And listen, I'm not knocking any of our generation, please. The point I'm trying to make is that what's come through the summit, and it was mentioned several times, was, you know, the COVID crisis is a disruptor, and it's changed the way that print businesses need to think, and they need to employ different people, and actually their investment will go into investing in good quality young people who understand technology and not necessarily in machinery, because actually they can't foresee whether that machine will ever be used. So I'm sensing that this COVID crisis could disrupt the print industry. There you go.
As a flip side to that, we've also discussed about the fact it could actually help the print industry.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's negative. I'm saying it's positive.
Yeah. Not all disruptions bad.
But it disrupts it to meaning that the shit goes and the innovators remain.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. It's all fair comment. Anything's valid. What about anyone else who's not had a say yet? Anybody else like to join in?
I noticed Stephanie Thiel is here, who is from Mark Brooks. Whether she could say something about our discussion. I don't know, Stephanie, whether you can hear me.
Come on, Stephanie, don't be scared.
We all right?
I think she's at the gin cabinet, to be honest. But
okay.
That's fair enough.
Not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea.
No, I can make you see me as well, if you give me a second.
Go, Stephanie.
Hello, can you? Yeah, here I am. Hi.
Yeah, we can hear you.
It's very, no, I can definitely say something. It's very, very interesting to listen to all of you. I think there's a lot of points I would agree with, and some points I also think, to be honest, I find them a bit surprising that they're mentioned, because like things like you have to look what the market wants, what the customer wants, and things like education and content and things like that. To me, it's of course. How else would an event work? And I think on the general topic of kind of the big shows and the small shows, I don't really want to comment on the contrasting shows, but generally I think the whole thing of exhibition industries, and my background is very much in exhibition industry and from an academic side as well. So I think this is not a new discussion. The whole thing of virtual events, that has been discussed certainly 10, 15 years ago. And we're always coming back to the point of face-to-face and the importance of face-to-face connection, face-to-face interaction. And I think this won't change in the foreseeable future. I think what happens with the virtual things, they're really valuable, and they will change. It will come in as a hybrid, has been mentioned a lot. And I think this is where the development goes. But also in terms of exhibitions itself, of course, they're changing, and every event or thing that happens, a disruption and things like COVID, of course, it changes exhibitions, but that's not something that it's particularly new. I think it's not, exhibitions have been a certain way and then suddenly COVID changes everything. I think it's an ongoing and organic change. Events like CeBIT, for example, that came out of the Hannover Messe years and years ago, which was a very, very big, still is a very big, wide event. And then the whole IT sector grew from that into an own event, which was very, very successful for very many years. And then now not so much anymore. So I think exhibitions naturally go through a development cycle in terms of industries that are targeted and how well a certain industry sector works. That's not just print industry, that's just generally speaking, but also the type of event. I think, of course, it's changing all the time. It's very interesting what you say about, the face-to-face element and the working together and the content as well, and being close to the market and talking to each other, which I think is very valuable.
Stephanie, to your company organizes events that are kind of medium-sized, let's say, but very targeted, I would say, like Imprint Eyes. Do you see a massive decline in interest, or do you see that's do you see it plateaued now and hopefully going up again in the near future?
So on which events do you mean, the target events? I mean the companies, obviously we're part of READ, which is a worldwide, an exhibition organizer with events worldwide in all types of events and in all types of sectors and markets. So, but
you don't have massive events like Drupa or anything like that. You have more targeted events, I would say. That's how I perceive Mac Brooks, at least.
Mac Brooks does have bigger events than an ICE and an imprint as well. But it's leading in technology, and so it's all very, what Mick Brooks does is all very, very focused events, and I think that's something that has been brought up as well. Obviously, it's, you know, focused events where you go and, you know, but that's nothing particularly new, as I said. So I think over the last years, exhibitions have developed to be very focused marketplaces.
Okay. All right. Great.
Well, listen, everybody, I can see a couple of people are itching to go off and cook their dinner here in the UK, not so much in North America. Again, it's nearly been an hour and a half and it's flown by. The conversation has been awesome because you've made it awesome. Claire Porter wins the prize for having the best background, and then we realise she actually is in a pub, so it is much appreciated. Milo and I, as you can tell, we're not professionals. We do this on the side. We have day jobs as well. But we do it twice a week because we like to know that everybody's okay. We want to bring everyone together. There's no cost. There's no advertising. But if you do want a web to print system, vpress.com is the name to go. So there's been some great events ran over this last week by Morton on Inkish, and over the coming weeks he's going to be running a head-to-head to web to print. So we're just about to launch a crowdfunding page for our competitors to come up against us. So if you would like to contribute on that as well, that would be great, because at the moment we don't have anybody. So even AFI have backed out of that one. The conversation has been awesome, as I said. Great conversation. We run this twice a week, 3:30 on a Tuesday, 3:30 on a Thursday, and we'll continue to do so as long as people come along and want to hear us discuss whatever the subject of the day happens to be. Next Tuesday, we've got the print buyer from Argos and Sainsbury's coming to talk to us. So she will be host of the pub, and we'll be able to hear from her vast experience. We've had some great hosts host the pub as we've gone forward. If you've got any subjects that you'd like to bring up, we've covered a whole range of them. All that content is available, even the arguments that we've had on the pub, which have all ended up very amicably, I'm pleased to say. Then by all means, let us know. But for us at Vpress, for everybody else, I hope to see you next Tuesday. Everybody be safe. Thank you very much for your support. Great conversation, great interaction. And those of you who weren't brave enough to say anything, you know, get braver. Thanks very much.
Right. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Great to meet you.
Bye, everybody.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you for coming.